Hello, everyone. Today we are presenting on the behavior change of cell phone reduction. The members of this group are Kendra Baldridge, Suzanne Miller, myself, Michelle Nee, Sarah Parker, and Lauren Simmons. In the replication of this study, we aim to reduce the overall cell phone usage of 5 women in a master's class studying ABA therapy. We're aged 20 to 46 years old, all living in different states across central time zones. The purpose of the replication study is to determine if interdependent group contingencies on adults have an effect on reducing daily cell phone usage.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Miller, and I'm going to be giving the literature review on our original study, which is reducing adolescent cell phone usage using an interdependent group contingency. So Jones conducted this study in a high school alternative classroom with the purpose of testing the effects of whether an independent group contingency will work to reduce cell phone times in these students. He used an ABAB reversal design, and he used the contingency on individuals and the whole class. The results of this did show that individually and as a whole, the cell phone usage was reduced only when using the group contingency, demonstrating that there is a functional relationship between the contingency and student cell phone usage. And the overall findings suggest that group contingencies may be helpful and useful for teachers to use within their classrooms to lower cell phone usage.
Hi, I am Lauren Simmons, and I did my literature review on the effects of a group contingency intervention on academic engagement and problem behavior of at-risk students. This study was conducted in a classroom. There were 4 groups of 3 over 15-minute sessions. Each participant received a ticket if they were on task throughout the class. If they all got 27 tickets throughout the week, they got a pizza party. And the study found that student engagement increased and maladaptive behaviors decreased. And it also found that it helped to build teamwork and positive social interactions between the peers.
The next literature review was a preliminary evaluation of the effects of a contingency management and deposit contract intervention on problematic smartphone use with college students. So in this study, 6 college students reported negative side effects of smartphone use and wanted to decrease their smartphone usage. During the contingency management and deposit contract condition, participants deposited $40 and had the opportunity to earn back their entire deposit by meeting daily smartphone usage goals. Participants also had the opportunity to earn a $20 cooperation bonus. For all participants in this study, lower levels of smartphone usage were observed during the intervention relative to the baseline. The contingency management and deposit contract intervention produced consistent decreases in smartphone usage for 4 of the participants and had inconsistent effects on smartphone usage for 2 of the participants. And maintenance of intervention effects was limited for all of those participants.
This is Sarah Parker. The next literature review that was conducted was on a study titled Decreasing Inappropriate Use of Mobile Phone Devices in Urban High School Classes, Comparing an Antecedent Intervention with and Without the Good Behavior Game. This study utilized an alternating treatments design to compare an antecedent intervention to the Good Behavior Game. The Good Behavior Game is a program that allows groups of students to earn points towards a reward. So the more cooperative the students are, the more points they will get, and then they will get their reward. An alternating treatment design was used for this one. They used an antecedent intervention in one condition that was a clear box where the students could choose to put their cell phones in or not. And then the next one was the good behavior game. And then the next treatment was the good behavior game plus the antecedent. The results of the studies showed that the best treatment was the good behavior game with the antecedent intervention in place as well. And the follow-up data showed that the behavior kept its stable results in the final condition where they just did the best treatment.
This literature review is over a master's thesis called Cell Phone Use in Class Participation and Interdependent Group Contingency. This was done at Missouri State University, and it's about reducing cell phone usage in the classroom, but also seeing if that increases classroom participation by using an interdependent group contingency. So it's an interdependent group contingency with multiple baseline design in 3 separate classes. So cell phone usage was taken on a planned activity check. So a 3-minute time would be scheduled by the observer, and in the last 20 seconds of that, the observer would record the number of students engaging with their cell phones, engaging being even looking at it or touching the screen to see if it was lit. At the same time, class participation was recorded also in a 3-minute frequency count. Any student engaged in any vocal participation, so asking questions, answering questions, engaging in classroom discussions, that would be recorded as engagement. The study was shown to decrease cell phone usage pretty drastically. By doing that, with the cell phone use decreasing, there was a very change in the classroom participation. It was not as drastic as the cell phone usage. The professors agreed to various reinforcers as the group contingency. 2 of them used 5.5 points per class added to the final if they had 0 cell phone interactions during that class.
Hi guys, my name's Kendra Baldridge. I did my literature review over using an antecedent intervention and interdependent group contingency to decrease the inappropriate use of mobile devices in high school classrooms. This was actually the dissertation of the same researcher that Sarah did her article on. So the study was pretty similar, except for they did a first phase of just normal classroom instructions, then did a phase with just the antecedent of the clear box, and then they did a next condition where it was the clear box plus the good behavior game. And this study was based in a 9th grade classroom, 2 of them with 43 students total. As Sarah said, this article also showed that the interdependent group contingency with the clear box plus the good behavior game was the most effective treatment. It was shown to increase academic engagement from 35% to almost 70%. They also tracked the decrease of off-task behavior from an average to 67 to 32. And most importantly, it decreased their cell phone use from an average of 36 down to 7% across both classrooms.
The methods of the projects, our participants, as has been stated, we are all females in the age range of 20 to 46 years old and currently enrolled in master's courses at Ball State University, and we're all living in the central time zone. All of our participants have relatively different jobs and family lives. So we are a very different group of individuals participating for a common purpose. The sessions all took place during non-contract hours. We all agreed that it wouldn't be ethically correct to take data while we were engaging with clients or students, and also we have to use our cell phones during our jobs. So We did take the sessions between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., but specific session times were determined based on our daily living factors. We all had to have access to a cell phone that could receive phone calls, text messages, access social media, use games, things like that. And we had to have a device other than our phone to record the sessions. So some of us used stopwatch, a digital timer. There was times when we had to use just dial-up watches. So each individual was certified with at least 1 year of experience with AVA. And so we were responsible for implementing the intervention on ourselves.
All right, and so the operational definition of our cell phone interaction is defined as interacting with the cell phone, any instance of the participant touching or picking up their cell phone for use. So an example would be including checking their text messages, scrolling on social media, answering a phone call, playing games, etc. Non-example would be picking up the phone, putting it in your back pocket, walking away.
Our data collection method was that we collected data throughout each 90-minute session. Duration data was collected. We all started the timer when we engaged in phone manipulation and stopped the timer when we put the phone down and we're no longer manipulating it. Data was collected in the participants' homes or going about their usual business. We used for our design a reversal design, ABAB. Each participant collected data for at least 5 sessions per phase. For the baseline, the participants collected data for a minimum of 5 sessions for both baseline conditions. We changed phases based on the stability of our data. During both baseline phases, we went about our usual activities during our 90-minute sessions. The participants used a timer to determine the duration of phone use during both baseline conditions. The participants then took photos of themselves in front of a clock with the timer set at 0 seconds, 0 minutes. And then at the end of the 90-minute session, we took another photo showing the total duration of phone use during the session at the end. And after we were done completing the session and taking our photos, they would be uploaded to a shared Google Drive so that we could look at each other's data for IOA collection purposes. During the treatment phase, we collected data for a minimum of 5 sessions in both conditions. Again, phase changes were made based on stable data. Again, we all went about our daily routine and collected duration data using the same method that was used in baseline. During the treatment phase, we would report back to the group on the percent of phone use, and the group contingency was applied when all participants met the expectation of phone use at or below 10%.
IOA data was collected for at least 20% of the sessions across each phase of the study. The group calculated IOA data utilizing a round-robin system. And IOA was measured by each member verifying another member's photos and data uploaded to the shared Google Drive and documented their own individual duration data. Participants then uploaded the datasheet to the Google Drive folder to determine the IOA agreement. So this was calculated using a point-by-point comparison of individual phone usage. So it was the total agreements divided by the total agreements plus disagreements, and then we multiplied that by 100. Treatment fidelity was monitored by utilizing a checklist that included 7 steps outlined below. The checklist was completed for at least 20% of each participant's sessions in both of the intervention phases of the study. A yes or no was placed in the column designated to indicate if a step was completed. And then treatment fidelity was calculated for each session by dividing the number of steps marked yes by the total number of steps to determine the percentage of treatment fidelity.
During the replication study, we all put our data onto graphs as we were conducting our sessions. And as you can see in my first baseline, there is some variability to the data, and it's mostly falling at the moderate level. There's an initial descending trend, and then the data started to stabilize. So with the stable data, I made a phase change. And you can see once the group contingency was applied, there was an immediate change of effect. And the data had a descending trend during the group contingency condition. And the last 3 data points were stable. So I went ahead and made another phase change of back to baseline. As you can see, my data in the second baseline was stable. It did not have any trend, and it all fell along the high, or it fell along the moderate level on the graph. And because the data was stable after those last 3 points are pretty stable, so I went ahead and made another phase change back to the group contingency, and you can see there's an immediacy of change as soon as that happened. And my last condition here, the data is pretty stable. There's not really a trend to it, and it's all at the low level. You can see that there are 3 effects shown here between the first baseline when it drops at the group contingency, and then it goes up at the next baseline, and then down again to the low level when the last group contingency is put into place. So these 3 effects show and indicate that there is a functional relationship between the group contingency, the independent variable, and cell phone reduction, which is the dependent variable.
Here's my graph. So my cell phone usage graph displays low level of cell phone usage overall. The data in the initial baseline is variable. However, due to some time constraints, I did change phases, and there was an immediacy of change when the treatment was introduced. The second baseline data was stable, but increasing in duration. So that's when I decided to switch phases. And the second treatment phase showed another immediacy of change. And overall, my graph shows a functional relationship between decreasing cell phone usage and group contingencies.
Okay, so my graph shows a high level of phone usage in the first baseline. There's some variable data, and due to time constraints, I had to change conditions before I had stable data. In my first intervention phase, my data was brought down to a low level. It was stable with no trends, so I switched phases back to the baseline phase. There was a immediate change, and data was stable without trend in the moderate level, so I switched back to the intervention phase with another immediacy of change. It was at a low level, so I discontinued treatment. From my graph, there are 3 effects shown, and that shows that there's a functional relationship between the independent variable and my phone usage.
For my graph and my first baseline, data is on the moderate scale with some variability. The last 3 data points are stable and there was no trend, so I moved over to intervention. It showed stable data with low levels. So I went back to my second baseline with an immediacy of change. The baseline had a decreasing trend and then stabilized. So I moved to my final intervention. I did not have an immediacy of change, but I did have a descending trend back to original intervention condition data of low level, and my last 3 data points were stable. This graph does not visually imply that there is a functional relationship due to only having 2 effects of change.
All right, and then on my graph, I had a moderate to high level with pretty low variability in that baseline. It was a slight decreasing trend. After that phase change, there was a high immediacy of change that occurred. This first intervention phase displayed data that was pretty low level, and it was pretty stable throughout those points collected. We then went into our next phase change to the baseline, which was a high immediacy of change, back to that same moderate to high level that I had in that first baseline. After those first 3 data points, you see a pretty steep increase in trend. So due to that trend being in non-therapeutic direction, we went ahead and did another phase change, showing our highest immediacy of change down to that intervention where we were stable and low throughout those points. My graph did end up displaying 3 effects of change, which deemed a functional relationship between our independent and dependent variables.
As you'll see, this is the range and average of everybody's graphs and their data.
So our data showed that we were each able to reduce our cell phone usage a significant amount using the interdependent group contingency. And it shows that it is an effective intervention to help reduce the use of cell phones.
Some limitations of our project that we came up with were that our study was conducted, the original reference study was conducted on adolescents. Our group is adults, so the group contingency could potentially have a different effect on adults than it does on adolescents. The study was done in a classroom setting. Our replication project was done going about our daily lives, not in a classroom. We collected data going about our usual tasks after work. The participants in our study are all adults with jobs and families. Due to work needs and family needs, it may have sometimes been necessary for participants to utilize their phone. Students in a high school would not have that need.